Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Nishit Kumar and with me is Raghu, bringing glimpses of major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. As the world fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of caution to stay safe and protected by following these three simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain social distancing and focus on hand and face hygiene. The headlines. Election Commission of India announces schedule for assembly elections in West Bengal, Assam, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Puducherry. FATF says Pakistan must give effective, decisive and proportionate punishment to those involved in terrorism. United Nations welcomes the ceasefire agreement between India and Pakistan. Brazil to purchase 20 million doses of Covaxin prepared by Bharat Biotech. Reaching Lord's New Delhi's Vaccine Maitri initiative. India's GDP growth for third quarter of current fiscal shows that positive growth of economy is returning to pre-pandemic times. And the first ever India Toy Fair to be inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday through virtual mode. The Election Commission of India on Friday announced the schedule for assembly elections in 4 states and 1 union territory. The elections in West Bengal, Assam, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Puducherry will be held between 27th of March to 29th of April. The counting of votes in all the 4 states and 1 union territory will take place on the 2nd of May. Chief Election Commissioner Sunil Arora announced the poll schedule in New Delhi this evening. The assembly elections in Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Puducherry will be held in a single phase on the 6th of April.
Now I go to Kerala. All elections in 14 districts consisting of 140 assembly constituencies to be held in a single phase. 6th April. General election to Assembly of Tamil Nadu 2021. All elections to 38 districts consisting of 234 assembly constituencies shall be held in a single phase. Date of poll 6th April. Puducherry 2 districts, 30 assembly constituencies to be conducted in a single phase. Date of poll 6th April.
In West Bengal, the polling will be held in 8 phases.
West Bengal, 8 phases. West Bengal, first phase, date of poll 27 March. Second phase, date of poll 1st April. Third phase, date of poll 6th April. Phase 4, date of poll 10th April. Fifth phase, date of poll 17th April. Phase 6, date of poll 22nd April. Seventh phase, date of poll 26th April. Last phase, date of poll 29th April.
Assam will go to polls in 3 phases.
Assam General Assembly Elections 2021. Elections shall be held in 3 phases. First phase, date of poll 27th March. Assam second phase, date of poll 1st April. Final phase, date of poll 6th April. Date of counting 2nd May.
The Chief Election Commissioner said 18.68 crore electors will vote at 2.7 lakh polling stations for 824 seats in these elections for 4 states and 1 union territory.
A total of 824 assembly constituencies shall be going for polls during these elections. 18.68 crore electors will cast vote at 2.7 lakh polling stations in these states and UT of Puducherry. More than 3 lakh service vote electors will be availing the facility of electronic transmitted postal ballot system, that is ETPBS.
Mr. Arora said the polling time has been increased by 1 hour. Elaborating about measures in view of COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. Arora said everyone on poll duty will be vaccinated before the elections. He said door-to-door campaigning will be restricted to 5 persons, including the candidate. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has lauded the role of medical professionals in fighting an unknown enemy during the COVID-19 pandemic. He said the Indian health ecosystem is being seen with new height, new respect and new credibility and called upon the young medical graduates to live up to expectations. Mr. Modi was addressing the 33rd convocation of the Tamil Nadu Dr. MGR Medical University through video conferencing on Friday. He said the world has great expectations from the medical graduates and they should carry the responsibility on their young and strong soldiers.
Tiruvalluvar said, the ailing, the doctor, the medicine and the caregiver. The treatment covers all these 4. Throughout the pandemic, And in the middle of disruption, each of these four pillars were at the forefront of fighting the war with the unknown enemy. All those who fought the virus emerged as the heroes of humanity. We are transforming the entire medical education and healthcare sector.
The Prime Minister said the COVID-19 pandemic was a completely unexpected occurrence to the world and there was no preset formula to fight the virus. In such a situation, India not only made a new path but helped others to walk on it. The death rate in the country was the lowest and the recovery rate was high. India is now producing medicines and vaccines for the world.
The COVID-19 pandemic was a completely unexpected occurrence for the world. In such a time, India had not only made a new path, but also helped others walk with it. India has among the lowest death rates. Recovery rates are high. India is producing medicines for the world and making vaccines for the world. You are graduating at a time when there is a great aspirations and respect for Indian medical professionals, scientists and pharma professionals.
Home Minister of India, Mr. Amit Shah, on Friday paid homage to the martyrs of the Pulwama attack. On the second anniversary of Balakot airstrikes, Mr. Shah said, under the leadership of Mr. Narendra Modi, the safety and security of the country and the soldiers is paramount. He said that the Indian Air Force had again made clear the policies of New India against terrorism by responding to the Pulwama terror attack. In 2019, during early hours of 26th February, airstrikes were conducted on terrorist training facilities in Balakot of Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. In this operation, a very large number of Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists, trainers, senior commanders and groups of jihadis who were being trained for Fidaiin action were eliminated. The airstrike was conducted after the terror attack by a Pakistan-based terrorist organization Jaish-e-Mohammed on a CRPF convoy in Pulwama on 14th of February 2019, in which 40 soldiers were martyred. On the anniversary of Balakot airstrikes, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has saluted the exceptional courage and diligence of the Indian Air Force. Mr. Singh said the country is proud of our armed forces who keep India safe and secure. He added that the success of Balakot strikes has shown India's strong will to act against terrorism. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Friday stressed on turning India into an important engine for the growth of the global economy. Speaking at the inaugural session of MEAPIC Asia Economic Dialogue 2021, Dr. Jaishankar highlighted the need for standing up for businesses. He added that it is the business of government to support business, specifically micro, small and medium enterprises. Dr. Jaishankar and his Australian counterpart, Maurice Payne, took part in a panel discussion on resilient global growth in post-pandemic world. The Australian Foreign Minister spoke about resilient supply chains and the importance of comprehensive strategic partnership. The Asia Economic Dialogue is the flagship geo-economics conference of the Ministry of External Affairs. It is jointly convened by the Ministry and Pune International Centre. The theme for this year's conference is Post-COVID-19 Global Trade and Finance Dynamics.
Information and Broadcasting Minister of India, Prakash Javadekar, has said that the new guidelines for social media intermediaries, OTT platforms and digital media will bring uniformity among all in the field of media. Speaking about the intermediary guidelines and digital media ethics code notified by the government on Thursday, Mr. Javadekar said that this will empower the users and will for the first time ensure grievance redressal mechanism for them. The minister asserted that the new guidelines, which have been welcomed by the world community, is based on the principle of responsible freedom. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has said that the recent disengagement of frontline Chinese and Indian forces in the Pangong Lake area has eased the situation on the ground. The statement follows the telephonic conversation between External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. According to the statement, both sides have agreed to establish a hotline for better communication and to exchange opinions in a time-bound manner. It also calls upon for upholding the strategic consensus reached by the leaders of the two countries firmly follow the path of mutual trust and cooperation between the neighboring powers. The statement added that the border disputes are an objective reality and should be given sufficient attention and taken seriously. However, border issues are not the whole of China-India relations and should be placed in an appropriate position in bilateral relations.
The phone call, which lasted 75 minutes, was the first formal contact between both the foreign ministers since they met on the margins of SCO meeting in Moscow on September 10th last year. And it came days after India and China completed first phase of troops disengagement around Pengal Lake along with armored vehicles and artillery. After this, both the sides completed 10th round of Corps Commander level talks on 20th February, but no breakthrough has yet been announced on the disengagement in other areas as agreed in the Moscow agreement. However, it is important that both the sides have given importance to communication and agreed to establish a hotline for better communication. It is also worth noting that both the sides have recognized that recent disengagement of two militaries in the Pengal Lake area is an important result of the earnest implementation of the Moscow consensus of the two foreign ministers. India hopes to strengthen dialogue and consultation with China to achieve complete disengagement in other regions as soon as possible. Anshuman Mishra for World News, All India Radio, Beijing.
Global terror financing watchdog FATF on Thursday decided to keep Pakistan on its grey list till June this year. It said that Pakistan is yet to complete its action plan to remove blocks in its fight against money laundering and terror financing. FATF urged Islamabad to demonstrate effective implementation of targeted financial sanctions against all designated terrorists and their associates. FATF also said that Pakistan courts must give effective, decisive and proportionate punishment to those involved in terrorism. It has told that Pakistan must have an effective system to deal with terror financing. Once Pakistan completes 3 unfulfilled tasks, the FATF will verify and take decision on Islamabad's present status in June plenary. A day after India and Pakistan announced ceasefire at the line of control and all other sectors in Jammu and Kashmir, the United Nations have welcomed the move. It has described the move as a positive step towards greater peace and stability in South Asia. Spokesperson of the UN Chief, Stefan Dujarric, also hailed the India-Pakistan announcement of a ceasefire. He said the Secretary General is encouraged by the joint statement issued by the militaries of India and Pakistan on their agreement to observe the ceasefire at the line of control in Kashmir and engage through established mechanisms. Mr. Dujarric hopes that this positive step will provide an opportunity for further dialogue.
The Secretary General is encouraged by the joint statement issued by the militaries of India and Pakistan on their agreement to observing the ceasefire at the line of control in Kashmir and engaging through established mechanisms. He hopes that this positive step will provide an opportunity for further dialogue.
United Nations General Assembly President Volkan Bozkır has welcomed the agreement between India and Pakistan on ceasefire along the line of control and other sectors. In a tweet, Bozkır said both sides' commitment to achieve sustainable peace through addressing each other's core issues and concerns set an example for other countries and demonstrates the UN General Assembly values. India and Pakistan on Thursday released a joint statement saying that they have held discussions regarding establishing a mechanism for hotline contact among both the nations. Talking to AIR News, former diplomat Rakesh Sood said it is a positive development. He said dialogue with Pakistan is necessary to manage matters.
It's a very positive development. I have always maintained that a dialogue with Pakistan is necessary because if not to resolve matters, but at least to manage matters. Because this firing and continuous this thing and having no communication at all is not something that serves our purpose. And I think that this is a positive development. And now how far we will probably judge over the next few months to see how the ceasefire is holding. And if it is holding, then it also strengthens the hand of the Modi government in managing affairs better in Jammu and Kashmir.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has announced the appointment of Ligia Narona of India as Assistant Secretary General and head of the New York office of the United Nations Environment Programme. Ms. Narona is an economist with over 30 years of international experience in the field of sustainable development. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates around the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
3 steps to stay protected and stay safe from COVID-19. Wear face mask, 2 गज की दूरी, to maintain social distancing, maintain hand and face hygiene.
Welcome back. Now, let us listen to the coronavirus updates across the globe.
U.S. President Joe Biden cautioned Americans not to let their guard down just yet. He was speaking at an event hailing the 50 millionth coronavirus vaccine administered in the country.
This is not a time to relax. We must keep washing our hands, stay socially distanced, and for God's sake, wear a mask.
Pfizer Inc. and BioNTech said on Thursday that they are testing a third dose of their COVID-19 vaccine to better understand the immune response against new variants of the virus. In another development, U.S. Food and Drug Administration has approved storage and transportation of COVID-19 vaccine developed by Pfizer Inc. and BioNTech at standard freezer temperatures for up to 2 weeks instead of ultra-cold conditions. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said that digital vaccination certificates enabling people to travel in Europe despite the coronavirus pandemic will probably be available before the summer. Israel Health Minister Yuli Edelstein said on Friday that the country has administered at least one COVID-19 vaccine shot to 50% of its population, while 35% have received the full 2-dose course. The Japanese government said on Friday that it would end a state of emergency in all but Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures at the end of this month as new coronavirus cases decline. And South Korea launched its COVID-19 inoculation campaign on Friday. VC Pramod for AIR World News.
India will start administering COVID-19 vaccine to people above 60 years of age from 1st of March. Those above 45 years of age with comorbidities will also be vaccinated in this phase. The preparation is underway for this phase of COVID vaccination. The vaccine will be administered free of cost at 10,000 government hospitals to these groups, while the cost of the vaccine at 20,000 private vaccination centers will be borne by them. Meanwhile, more than 134 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine doses have been administered to the beneficiaries in the country so far, and country's COVID-19 recovery rate stands at 97.17%. Health Ministry of Brazil on Thursday signed a contract to purchase 20 million doses of Covaxin vaccine made by India's Bharat Biotech. The ministry said the first 8 million doses is expected to arrive in March. Meanwhile, Brazil reported 1,541 new COVID-19 deaths on Thursday, the second highest daily death toll since the pandemic began in the country.
China has recognized India's efforts in supplying COVID-19 vaccines to the world's especially poorer nations. In response to a question at a press briefing in Beijing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said that it welcomes India shipping more doses of free COVID-19 vaccines around the world, especially to poorer countries compared with Chinese vaccine supplies. He added China hopes to see more countries taking actions to provide vaccines to the world, especially developing countries, to help with the global response. True to its earned fame of world pharmacy, India focused on its production capacity to vaccinate its own billion-plus population as well as supplying to the world, especially poorer nations, through WHO-led COVAX. More from our Beijing correspondent.
India's ability to manufacture vaccines has helped create a surplus of vaccines which is propelling India's vaccine mastery. Indian government has made sure that vaccine supplies are procured for smaller countries as well as its own citizens, as it is also exporting vaccines commercially. Experts say China could have used free vaccines to build stronger relations and gain diplomatic advantage. However, it could deliver less than its promise. Chinese pharmaceutical companies have been reticent in sharing details of their phase 3 vaccine trials, and new domestic outbreaks forced China to inoculate its own 1.4 billion population, a mammoth task. Meanwhile, India sent millions of doses to neighboring Nepal, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, among others, allowing them to begin vaccinations quickly. China said it has been overcoming domestic difficulties to provide vaccines to other countries. Anshuman Mishra, Forward News, All India Radio, Beijing.
Director General of World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, has thanked India and Prime Minister Narendra Modi for supporting vaccine equity. He said India's commitment to COVAX and sharing of COVID-19 vaccine doses with other countries is helping over 60 countries worldwide. Dr. Tedros underlined that this act of vaccine equity by India has helped the recipient countries to start vaccination programs for their health workers and other priority groups. He wished other countries as well to follow India's example. In response to his remarks, Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a tweet said, "We are all together in the fight against this pandemic." He added that India is committed to sharing resources, experiences and knowledge for global good. This is All India Radio giving you the world news.
ग्लोबल टॉय इंडस्ट्री 7 लाख करोड़ रुपए से भी अधिक की है. Team up for toys.
The Government of India is organizing India's first ever, the India Toy Fair. Indian local toy manufacturers march forward for Atmanirbhar Bharat. It's time to get vocal for your remarkable local. From 27 February to 2nd March, must come forward to get registered online at www.theindiatoyfair.in.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the India Toy Fair 2021 on Saturday through video conferencing. The fair aims to provide an impetus to the underlying themes of Atmanirbhar Bharat and Vocal for Local campaigns launched by the government to promote indigenous industries. It also aims to leverage the potential of toys in making learning joyful across all ages in education. In his Mann Ki Baat program in August last year, the Prime Minister had said that toys not only augment activity but also give flight to aspirations. Noting the importance of toys in the holistic development of a child, the Prime Minister has earlier also emphasized boosting toy manufacturing in India.
टॉय इंडस्ट्री बहुत व्यापक है. गृह उद्योग हो, छोटे और लघु उद्योग हो, एमएसएमई हो, इसके साथ साथ बड़े उद्योग और निजी उद्यमी भी इसके दायरे में आते हैं. इसे आगे बढ़ाने के लिए देश को मिलकर मेहनत करनी होगी. मैं अपने स्टार्टअप मित्रों को, हमारे नए उद्यमियों से कहता हूँ, टीम अप फॉर टॉयज. आइए मिलकर खिलौने बनाएं. अब सभी के लिए लोकल खिलौनों के लिए वोकल होने का समय है. आइए हम अपने युवाओं के लिए कुछ नए प्रकार के अच्छी क्वालिटी वाले खिलौने बनाते हैं. खिलौना वो हो जिसकी मौजूदगी में बचपन खिले भी, खिलाए भी. हम ऐसे खिलौने बनाएं जो पर्यावरण के भी अनुकूल हो.
India's economy grew 0.4% in October-December period of current fiscal. According to official data released on Friday, the gross domestic product GDP in third quarter Q3 of 2020-21 is estimated at 36.22 lakh rupees crore, showing a growth of 0.4% at constant prices of 2011-12 fiscal. GDP of the country witnessed growth after logging contraction in last 2 quarters. The statement has highlighted that the measures taken by the government to contain spread of the COVID-19 pandemic have had an impact on the economic activities as well as on the data collection mechanisms. Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press.
The New York Times writes that Shamima Begum, the British woman who joined the Islamic State when she was 15, loses effort to return to UK in fight for citizenship. Washington Post has reported that Capitol Police Chief said extremists have discussed attack on Congress during Biden's first joint address. The Guardian reports that adults aged 40 to 49 will be next in line for COVID vaccine across the UK. According to Global Times, China's defense budget to continue upward in 2021, buttressed by economic upturn, strong fiscal foundation. The Sydney Morning Herald writes that Israel has frozen its program to send COVID-19 vaccines abroad to buy international goodwill after the initiative came under legal scrutiny. And Khaleej Times reports that the Joint Arab Coalition forces have intercepted and destroyed a bomb-laden UAV launched by the terrorist Houthi militia to target civilians in Khamis Mushaid city of Saudi Arabia. VC Pramod for AIR World News.
Boeing has agreed to pay $6.6 million in penalties to the Federal Aviation Administration FAA after U.S. regulators said it failed to comply with a 2015 safety agreement and cited other safety concerns. The penalties include $5.4 million for not complying with the agreement in which Boeing pledged to change its internal processes to improve and prioritize regulatory compliance and $1.21 million to settle 2 pending FAA enforcement cases. In another development, Australia said on Friday it would lift a near 2-year ban on flights involving Boeing's company's 737 MAX planes. With this, Australia becomes the first country in the Asia-Pacific region to do so. The Boeing 737 MAX was grounded in March 2019 after 2 deadly crashes.
Facebook Inc. on Friday announced preliminary commercial agreements with 3 small local publishers in Australia. The social media company has ended a 1-week blackout of Australian news on its popular social media site. The moves reflected easing tensions between Facebook and the Australian government a day after the country's parliament passed a law forcing Facebook and Alphabet Inc.'s Google to pay local media companies for using content on their platforms. Responding to the developments, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said, "Global tech giants are changing the world, but we can't let them run the world." He added that big tech must be accountable to sovereign governments. The United States carried out airstrikes against facilities belonging to the Iraqi militants in eastern Syria on Thursday. The Pentagon said that airstrikes was in response to rocket attacks against U.S. targets in Iraq. Since late 2019, the United States has carried out high-profile strikes against Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq and Syria in response to deadly rocket attacks against the U.S.-led forces. And now some news from the world of sports.
India's dashing batter Yusuf Pathan has announced his retirement from all formats of the game today. He played 57 ODIs and 22 T20 ODIs for India between 2007 and 2012. He was part of the 2007 T20 World Cup as well as the 2011 ODI World Cup, both of which were won by the Indian team. Meanwhile, Pakistan batsman Umar Akmal's 18-month ban for failing to report corrupt approaches has been reduced to a year by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. The 30-year-old was also fined more than 4 million Pakistani rupees. The ban is backdated to when he was suspended by a Pakistan Cricket Board PCB disciplinary committee in February 2020. Now Akmal will be free to play competitive cricket once he has completed a rehabilitation program. England women cricket team secured a series victory over New Zealand with a comprehensive 7-wicket win in the second one-day international in Dunedin. The host fell to 34 for 5 and despite Brooke Halliday scoring 60 were dismissed for 192 with a ball to spare. England opener Tammy Beaumont hit an unbeaten 72 in reply, backed by 63 from Nat Skeever, who had earlier taken 3 for 26. Wicketkeeper Amy Jones added 46 not out to help the tourists reach their target with 12.2 overs to spare. Victory gives England Eves an unassailable 2-0 lead in the 3-match series, with the final ODI also taking place at the University Oval in Dunedin on Saturday. VC Pramod for Sports Desk.
The government of New Zealand said on Friday that it will support a new project that uses drone technology to understand and protect the endangered Maui dolphins in the country. Maui dolphins live in a small stretch of ocean off the west coast of New Zealand's North Island. As for the latest data, only 63 dolphins older than 1 year remain, raising concerns that they may soon become extinct. And before we close, a quick look at the headlines once again. Election Commission of India announces schedule for assembly elections in West Bengal, Assam, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Puducherry. FATF says Pakistan must give effective, decisive and proportionate punishment to those involved in terrorism. United Nations welcomes the ceasefire agreement between India and Pakistan. Brazil to purchase 20 million doses of Covaxin prepared by Bharat Biotech. Reaching Lord's New Delhi's Vaccine Maitri initiative. India's GDP growth for third quarter of current fiscal shows that positive growth of economy is returning to pre-pandemic times. And the first ever India Toy Fair to be inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday through virtual mode. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnava Jan, by artists from the UAE.
Vaishnava Jan to tene kahiye je pide parai jane re par dukhe उपकार करे तो ये मन अभिमान आज रे वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीजे पराई.
And with that, we end this bulletin. See you at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.